Hey everybody, welcome back to your Donna Drones podcast. I'm Don Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and we are continuing an incredible month dedicated to critical infrastructure support, sponsored by SAIC. And today we have actually a partner of SAIC in some respects, Danny Rajan, who is the U.S. manager for D-Fend Solutions, and I underscore U.S. manager because we're going to talk quite a bit towards the end of the show about D-Fend's U.S. expansion and kind of what their plans are going forward. But it's wonderful to have you on the show, Danny.
Thanks, Don. Great to be on the show.
And we're kind of doing around the world with D-Fend because we had Martin Broomhead, right, your UK manager, on a couple months ago, telling us about all the latest developments in the United Kingdom and Britain. And so now we're going to focus back on the U.S. And before we do that, Danny, I really, for those that don't know you, could you tell everybody a little bit about your own background?
Yeah, definitely. And again, thanks for giving me a chance to share what we're doing here in the U.S. So I've been really fortunate to have had the chance to work for some great organizations, learn from some incredible leaders, and be part of really strong teams that have delivered relevant capabilities for our defense and security customers. I spent my whole 33 years focused on the DoD, intel community, and it's been an awesome journey. Just because I love being able to do something that's going to have an impact and see the results of that. Just background-wise, after I got my engineering degree, I worked with the Naval Air Warfare Center. As a 20-ish kid, I got to work on some advanced ISR capabilities for airborne platforms. I got to spend time with some carriers. I got to fly on some military platforms, but it really gave me an understanding of what the warfighter's needs are, gave me an understanding of how technology can flow into the hands of these really complex scenarios and environments, and sort of shaped what I really want to do for my life, which is, serve a lot of these men and women who are working in challenging environments and really need technology. I left the DoD side, went to the intel side for a while, and became a program acquisition manager with what is now the NGA, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. And about 14 years of government service, and then went to industry, and I've been working with some of the large primes, medium-sized system integrators. So it's been really awesome, and we're on my way to D-Fend Solutions a little more than a year ago, and having a great time here.
Well, I love that. And, I'm going to say thank you for your service. I think, a lot of people will thank military members or former military members, but there's really a whole large group of civilians, whether they're as you were for NGA or also as a contractor on the other side of the fence, like for L3 Harris, that really make the military what it is today. So that's really awesome. So I'm just curious, having come from basically the defense industrial complex, right? And very large companies. What has that transition been between that world, if you will, and then coming to let's just call it a smaller company like D-Fend, and especially one that started outside of the U.S.?
It's been first of all, it's been great. There's a lot. My last company, L3 Harris, I loved it. Great leadership, really well-run company, and the things that we were working on there. The scale of them, the types of opportunities you pursued were very different than coming to a small company. I say this: it's awesome being in the company that's growing, that's able to control its own destiny in many ways. When I had the opportunity to join the company, it was a no-brainer, because this company, first of all, has an incredibly high TRL product, very reliable, deployed. All within a very small working environment. So I had the best of both worlds. I could be part of a small growing company, but the product itself is so mature and it's so relevant. And of course, the timing, as you know, right now, drones are a big deal, whether you're making them, flying them, or you're trying to address some of the safety issues. So it was like a perfect opportunity where the technology, the product, and a really well-run company, the culture that I saw here when I was interviewing was something different, and I loved it. And of course, being part of a U.S. presence to grow has been great. So transition's been really easy, and I love it. It's great to be part of a small company that's got so much potential.
Well, and there's something to be said for specialization too, right? That jack of all trades, master of none. But in this case, it's more like, a niche market that is very much needed. And we're going to get a little bit more detail into why that is. But let me ask you, from that previous experience, kind of what did you bring forward? Because I'm sure along the way you learned some lessons working with the big defense companies and then working with the DoD and other, kind of critical infrastructure support agencies, three-letter agencies in the federal government. What did you learn along the way?
So having the acquisition background and on the industry side, being part of trying to build those solutions and meet the requirements of a big acquisition, uh, you know, it, there's a lot of technology out there that commercial companies are producing. Especially, let's just look at this market here with the drone and counter drone world. Um, it's for a small company, it's hard, right? Because you're really got to figure out as a small company, how do I work within a very complex acquisition process? Whether it's DoD or DHS, federal acquisition isn't easy. It takes, there's a lot of regulations, compliance. We just want to be a tech provider of a great product, but we still have to comply to a whole bunch of things. I think one of the key things that I've learned through this journey is, what how can I serve what the customer really wants? How do we respond to these requirements, and how we most effectively be a partner to the end customer and the primes. Having been on the prime side, I think I had a good feeling for how tech could be brought in, how efficiently we can bring, especially COTS capability, so we can shortcut some of the timelines, maybe shortcut some costs that we would have to deal with if we developed it ourselves. So I think it's just balance. There's a place for technologies like this. We have to work with great partners who understand that. We've got to integrate into existing programs, in existing infrastructure, or in the case of command and control systems. So we've got to be smart about how we can make it easy for let's just say, system integrator to want to use our product. And of course, we've got to make it easy for a customer to say, I get it, I need to have it, and and then be part of that process to get into a program.
Well, and what I was going to say also, Danny, is that we've got an audience out there. Everybody, I know you're out there. We are live, and please engage in the chat. Tell us where you are, where you're from. Ask Danny questions, because his experience working with these big defense contractors and actually within the intelligence community translates so well that I think, Danny, a lot of our followers are, entrepreneurs, folks in companies that are hungry to work with these big companies or with the DoD. And so some of that experience and lessons learned that you bring to the table, I'm sure that it's very valuable for them to hear this. And so that's really a great segue to my follow-on question, which is, you were on that acquisition and kind of program management side of the house, and now you're on the solution provider side. Um, the acquisition process takes there's a lot to be desired with it, I think. There's a lot of criticisms of it, how long it takes, right? We've seen other, let's just say, transaction authorities being used to try to faster track some of these technologies like counter drone technology into the DoD and other agencies, just because the normal process and being a program of record takes years. Um, what's your view on this? What kind of empathy do you have with regards to the common goal of getting these new technologies in the hands of our defenders and protectors?
So everything you said, yeah, this is part of the journey as a small company trying to work within the federal government. First of all, it's a complex process, as you said. We all want to get into a program of record. So as a small company, you want to be part of something that's going to be sustainable, it's going to be enduring, and obviously it's going to have budget and funding and all that. It doesn't work that way. Where every day and that's part of the fun working for a company of this size. It's still pretty young. Every day is a challenge. We're out there talking to as many customers as we can. We spend a lot of our time showing the capability. And I think that's the one key takeaway. Slides are great. I think I've become a master slides person over the years.
PowerPoint ranger.
I can make a slide about anything. I can sell it on the slide. But there's something really awesome when you can talk to a customer and say, hey, I'll get a system out there. Tell me where you want to be, or why don't you come and visit us at our location here? We'll turn it on. We'll show you a drone, and be able to show that. It is really hard for a small tech company to just go walk in the door and say, hey, pay attention to this, take a look at this, or you got to listen to my brief. So what we do is we get into demonstrations, evaluations, and I tell every potential customer or partner, validate us, let us come in, turn us on. If you have other scenarios or options or whatever it is, get it all together. You take a look at it and try it. And I know with our system especially, once they get a feel for how does the detection and tracking system work, how does mitigation work, how easily it works, they get it. So one of the key takeaways, I think, when you're a small tech company, you're working within this this federal regulations and all the compliance we have, you got to get out there and you got to show it, because the tech, and across any niche market, there's great tech out there. You got to show how it works. I just one thing why I'm really excited about where we are in this market space on technology. I was at the National Reconnaissance Office before it was, we could even say that it existed. And space was all about the government. The government owned and controlled space, and it was a defense intel thing. Well, look where we are now, right? You have companies out there. Space is a commercial endeavor now. You have people flying, citizens into space. It took a while, but the regulations, I think the great leadership in the government realized we got to bring commercial industry in now. We got to be able to allow them to do this because it'll be cheaper. They'll get things done faster. I think we're in the same place. Same thing with drones. We didn't have drones like we have now 20 years ago. So I think we have to, we as an industry have to help the government policy and just understand how the technology can impact what they're trying to do, and be part of that solution. And that's again, you demonstrate, you show them, and then be part of policy making, and hopefully it becomes easier and industry flourishes because it becomes more of a partnership, and it's not just here's the government regulations and follow the rules that way. If that makes sense.
I agree, Danny. Seeing is believing. I was in the courtroom quite a bit when I was in the Air Force, and having some kind of a visual, I think, makes all the difference in bringing something to life for somebody so they can actually understand it. People learn in different ways, but I was almost laughing as you were talking about commercial space, because it's almost easier to fly a human in space right now commercially than it is on an eVTOL aircraft, certainly, because we're still working through all of those regulations. And, just when you think about even small drones and drone delivery and the process for that, just to deliver a flipping pizza, to someone's backyard, it's like easier for Elon to put somebody in space than it is for one of these companies to, to deliver a drone, a pizza into their backyard. So yeah, it's almost mind blowing. But I think that's also a good transition to talk about drones and kind of where we are, because I think part of the challenge with the drone industry is there's so many pilots out there that actually follow the rules, and all it takes is those one or two to wreak some havoc, and those are the ones that make the headlines that really impact public perception. So I know, D-Fend, you have a global drone incident tracker on your website, which I think is spectacular. It's all publicly reported information about incidents around the world. Tell us a bit about your observations, particularly in the U.S. recently.
You're right. It's a lot of incidents. We're all seeing this increasing number of just reported news stories about drones flying into the wrong place at the wrong time. Our tracker, it is a really cool tool. Now, one thing is that we take publicly available information, so everything we show on our tracker is available, on the internet, or you probably read about it. What's really interesting isn't just the nature of the incidents, but it's across all these different types of scenarios and verticals. It's not just like in one niche area like sporting events. we're seeing drone incidents obviously at airports, critical infrastructure like chemical plants and nuclear plants, a lot of drone incidents at prisons. And got a couple examples here where, you know, there are the number of incidents of people flying drones into correctional institutions to drop off weapons or drugs or, you know, cell phones. It's not just happening once in a while here or there. It is happening everywhere. And this is one incident here, I think in I think it was in South Carolina. But
Yeah,
we
yeah,
were,
I'd love to jump in here for a second because I was with some of your team, Jeffrey Starr, and some of your other colleagues from D-Fend Solutions at the recent Counter UAS Congress run by the International Association of Conferences in Washington, D.C. And, you know, Chatham House rules applied, so we can't attribute any particular comment to any particular speaker. But, you know, what I didn't quite appreciate the importance of cell phones to some of these inmates. Like, it makes sense, but I never really thought about it, that that is one of the most valuable things that a drone can drop into a prison, because then of course they can continue conducting business on the outside from the inside. And so I know there's been a big uptick of these cell phone drops. And, you know, I think the nightmare scenario for, you know, the Bureau of Prisons or any of these local jails or, you know, anything like this would be dropping a no kidding gun or a weapon in by drone. I mean, that would be, could be catastrophic.
well, and no, we can't, I can't get the details, but absolutely we've heard that that has happened, right? Weapons being transported by a drone. You know, we were just in Indiana about a month ago. We have a great partner there, All Secure Group, who has been working to law enforcement at the state and local level and the corrections side of it. And so we did have a chance to meet with some individuals from the Department of Corrections for the state. And the incidents are pretty significant, and they are scary, and they're very concerned about it. It's not just prisons. If you look on the bottom right there, there are two men arrested for flying multiple drones over, I think it was 3 chemical plants, uh, which is crazy, right? Why would you want to fly a drone over a chemical plant unless you know, you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing? But
Right.
that's really scary too. And we have met with some nuclear power plants, same type of issue. They're seeing visually drones flying around, even though there might be a no-fly zone above the plants, but they're seeing them flying around. So it's these incidents are not. I'd say some of them could be reckless, but you know they're bordering on. You know, when you fly over a chemical plant, there's something up there. Um,
Well, and to your point, you know, this is support to critical infrastructure month, and most people don't realize that about 80 to 90% of our critical infrastructure in the United States is owned by the private sector. Like that, those chemical plants, they're not government facilities. And, you know, so when you think about that, and the important sectors, and, you know, the Department of Homeland Security in the US, they say we have 16 sectors, right? How critical it is that these folks have the capability to not only detect, but if needed, mitigate. Now, when you're talking about nukes, you've got the Atomic Energy Act, and that's been out for a while. So they have some specialized authorities, just like a handful of other federal agencies. But that's about it, right? So, I mean, I think that's a continuing challenge. You know, what's interesting about this slide, and we're going to move to the next one here in a second, but I wanted to hit Disneyland. You know, Disneyland's been in the news lately, a big, you know, kind of running gun battle with the government there in Florida, which is a hot mess. But the point is, like, Disneyland, I think, has had a TFR, air quotes, temporary flight restriction over it for like 10 years or something insane. And yet here we have, what was it? A drone dropped out of the sky or something at the park?
Yeah, it was in February, and at Disneyland, it was a drone hovering around over visitors. You know, and they believe it was an individual who was just trying to get some happy snaps, right? And just they were probably staying near the park, but it fell out of the sky, right? Which can happen. That's the scary part, because these are drones. They're if they lose connection with the remote control, you know, they normally should land safely back at their home base, but something can malfunction. So in this case, it was hovering and then fell. Fortunately, no one was injured. And we had an opportunity to go meet with Disney a few months ago. It was probably a couple months after that incident. And it was really eye-opening to just hear from them, because Disney is a huge enterprise, right? It's not just the parks, but it's, they got the offices and then they've got studios. They are getting a lot. They are getting tested by drone activity, and some of this is also about protecting IP. They don't want drones flying over parts of their studios. No studio wants any drone filming what might be going on or capturing what might be going on. So it's a big deal. Amusement parks, sporting events. These are, they're not the same level as a prison, but you got a lot of people in these events, and you don't want to have a drone flying over that's not authorized, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I may have confused. I always get Disney World and Disneyland confused. Is land in California? Because you
yeah,
mentioned the studio.
Disneyland's in
Okay, all
California,
right. So
and that's
I
where
got that
Disney.
completely wrong. I apologize.
That's
But I know at least at Disney World they've had the TFR. I assume in California they have a similar one as well. And you're right, when you think about Disney and like the films, they're Marvel is now a part of Disney, right? And
Yes,
so I'm sure people are very interested to see what's that next thing coming out from an espionage standpoint. But here's just a couple more. Airports are a big one, right? Like Danny, I mean, this is something that remains a challenge.
it does. Every time an airport shuts down, it's, depending on the size of the airport, it could be up to millions of dollars of commerce that's impacted. Put aside just the frustration of, passengers, but airports all over the world are getting impacted, especially in the U.S. And we're spending a lot of time with airports. Obviously, legislation's got to catch up. We're working, we're working directly with the FAA right now in their 383 program so we can get evaluated for detection and mitigation. We've been working with TSA, same type of thing, to help them, through using and evaluating our product, build the right policy so we can get it enacted. But airports, it's a big deal. It's not just a drone flying into an airport. It's also the possibility of a drone colliding with an airplane as it's landing or taking off. This is a big deal, and we're finding that the more airports we talk to, the more that they're seeing activity and they're concerned about it. So we just want to make sure that they're ready. They know what's available, and when the policy is in place, when they can mitigate, they're able to quickly implement what makes sense for their airport.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So everybody out there, Section 383 that Danny's mentioning is actually in the 2018 FAA Reauthorization Act, and it enabled the FAA to have basically do R&D at a handful of airports with counter UAS technologies, and so that's been going on for about 5 years now, and that program, frankly, is expiring. It's sunsetting, and I was just reading Drone Life this morning, and it looks like the FAA reauthorization is stalled in the Senate.
Yes,
And they're going to reconvene after the 4th of July, and we'll see where that goes. But even so, I don't think there was a ton of stuff in there in the bipartisan markup that talked about counter drone, and those authorities are also expiring in September for those very small handful of federal agencies. And so, man, we're coming to a critical point here in aviation that I hope Congress, someone out there is listening, because this needs to move forward, and it can't just be on the counter drone side. It cannot just be a handful of federal agencies, because all of these critical infrastructure locations we've been talking about are owned by the private sector. And oh, by the way, any act that happens at the state level, it's going to be the local authorities that respond. And we have
exactly.
we've got a whole joint terrorism task force set up. We've got SWAT teams. We've got mechanisms in place that where this kind of technology and capability and expertise can be embedded without it being, just kind of Sheriff Billy Bob or something, right? I know there's a lot of concerns out there, but I think we have a process. But I think that's a great a great inflection point, Danny, to talk a little bit about EnforceAir and some of the updates you've made to this cyber solution. And so everybody out there, like I mentioned, we had Martin Broomhead on talking a little bit about this last year. Actually, we had a D-Fend series with Gabriel and Asaf. Gabriel, in fact, walked us very in great detail through EnforceAir and how it works. And there's some associated articles on my website as well. So you can check out all those back episodes on P3 Tech. But tell us about some of the updates here. One of them was in the past year or so, you all on the military side. You were recommended and named by the Joint Counter UAS Office, JCO, which is an Army organization. So tell us what that means. What is the significance of this?
Yeah, no, we're really proud of our participation and the results. We spent several weeks. One of our engineers, Rob, went out to Yuma Proving Grounds. Not the most exciting place to be, but he spent quite a bit of time working with our partner there in our prime, SAIC, who put together a really strong counter-UAS capability that was evaluated by the JCO. We were the RF cyber component. This effort started well before the actual activity in April of last year. SAIC did a great job putting the team together with the integration. We took our system and integrated it into their command and control viewer, which is called Valkyrie, and showed that you can have a layered capability, radar, and you could actually, they didn't have kinetic for this effort, but all types of different modalities. And of course, we had the RF cyber piece. What was really great was that during that time, we were fully evaluated. The JCO flew in a variety of different types of drones that we uniquely were able to handle. We detected, tracked, we were able to mitigate. In some cases, the range of our mitigation was really impressive. So we went through the entire process of that evaluation, and it was great to be recognized in a memorandum that General Gainey had released that just highlighted that what we have is pretty special, and when you need it to work, it worked, and that was a key thing. And then partnering with SAIC was great. Having a partner like that, really, we learn a lot. We understand what from a bigger picture as a prime, they obviously are looking at solving a broader solution than what we were delivering. So being able to work with a radar partner and all the other different modalities helped us understand better how do we fit in. So these types of activities, working with these great system integrators, is important because it's a form of feedback for us. And obviously we're getting feedback on how we perform, where we can have improvements. And so having a partner that's able to guide us in that way is great, because we're always then able to at least stay on track with what the requirements might be, or maybe they find some things that we missed that we wouldn't have been looking for in terms of either performance or some feature. But in the end, yeah, we did something that we hadn't done before, which is formally get into this exercise and get a mention in a memorandum. So that's always a great thing.
No, that's really cool. And we actually had Billy Jackson from SAIC on the show last week. He was talking about you guys. He was talking about their Valkyrie system and this very demonstration in Yuma. In fact, Greg Fortier, who's in charge of the Army Business Unit, was actually out in Yuma, was supposed to be on the show. So we had to swap in Billy. He did a great job. For those that follow us and AUVSI, next Tuesday, an article should be coming out explaining a little bit more about Valkyrie. D-Fend gets, by the way, mentioned in that article. So keep your eyes peeled for the e-brief. But yeah, just really cool that you guys mentioned in that by the JCO, and that integration. And I want to talk a little bit about a unique integration you guys just did, which is in the maritime side. So my understanding is that you did another demonstration in the lower Mississippi River complex for the maritime sector, and learn a lot of things. You again integrated with other companies like people out there probably have heard of, like Lightai, that has a lot of connections with the DoD, and Numerica. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And then I believe we have a really cool video to roll about it.
Yeah, definitely. So we partnered with Lightai, who we've been working with on a couple of other opportunities, pursuits. Numerica, who has a really nice command and control system. But what the forcing function was Rob Perez from Romeo Papa Boats. So they're a partner of ours, and they spent a lot of time patrolling the Mississippi. And one of the things that they identified was that there's drone activity at night. and things are being dropped off and on top of cargo. There's saw drone activity just light of day where drones shouldn't be along the river pathway, which could have really impacted and created an incident. So we partnered. It was a very quick turn of effort. It wasn't like we had months and months to prepare. So it just talks a lot about our capability, a company like LiDAI, how quickly we can integrate, how interoperable our systems are. That's again another thing like with SAIC, we're able to make sure we're aligned with. And we installed on a boat. And what was really cool is not only did we demonstrate the feasibility and the viability of a counter UAS system on a ship, but we demonstrated that with live drones. I mean, we were on the ship and there was drone activity. We didn't have to fly our own drones because unfortunately there was a lot of stuff flying around. So
Wow.
we were able to detect it. And then Gabe was one of our engineers on the boat, spent some time under. He actually brought with him I guess a water drone, basically.
I think
Drone.
it was UUV and uncrewed underwater
Yeah,
view.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So so we said, and it's a COTS product. So we put it in the water, and we were able to detect it. So that's great because we had that. We know we can detect drones in the air, but now we're able to show that we could detect drones coming in the water. That was very cool. And what's important really is that area specifically. There's about $700 million of cargo that goes through this complex, the Mississippi complex, each day. That's a lot of commerce that
Think
goes
about
through.
that.
And the conflict in Ukraine, one of the things you saw, unfortunately, between that the Russians and Ukrainians were able to do is use drones to attack ships. Just basically modify the safeguards and just fly drones into ships. So it is a big deal here about protecting our shipping lanes, and there's a lot of international shipping activity comes through our waters. There could be drone activity for espionage that could be occurring on from these international ships. So it was really important that we were able to show this. We actually had the Coast Guard on the ship with us and a few other representatives from different organizations within the state. So it's great to have a partner like Romeo Papa. Great to have partners like LiDAI in America because you have to be able to put all this together so it's actually a solution. And we were able to do that very quickly, and it was the impact to those prospective customers was very clear. They saw something that they weren't sure they could actually do. And I
Well,
think the video is going to show some of that too.
perfect. That's great. Yeah, let's roll that video. All right, that's incredible. And when you think about this, the sea lanes, if you will, and critical infrastructure, what an important use case. So thank you for sharing that with us. I think just really proving out this concept. I really want to talk about all the different updates you're also making to EnforceAir. I mean, you're out there doing these demos, getting recognized by the JCO, proving out the maritime sector concepts. But you've also done a couple of improvements. So can you get us up to speed on where we are with EnforceAir, what you've added to it?
Absolutely. So we do have regular updates. There are always new drones. There's always new capabilities that we have to be able to make sure our customers are prepared to handle. So this release basically has four types of feature or capability improvements. One is we've added to our drone library. So we've got new type of drones where we can detect, identify, or mitigate about 20 additional drones, the Mavic 3, Air 2S, Autel Nano. So we've really strengthened our drone library, and that's something we continue to do. We invest quite a lot of R&D to make sure we're staying as close as we can to what's going on in the market and what our customers are seeing. The other big update is that we've really strengthened our remote ID functionality. So obviously, remote ID is basically it's here. We've got to make sure we can comply. So we did a lot more work here in strengthening our the support for long-range detection, being able to get the remote ID information, and really what's important is adding the modules required so that we're compliant to remote ID standards here in the U.S., in the EU, and Japan. So make sure there's consistency there, so that anywhere globally that our product is used, we are compliant. The other one is that we're always updating our API. We want to make sure that we can provide as much detail, metadata about the drone, the drone information we're able to obtain, making sure that we can provide that through our API. So made some really good improvements to our API. And then there's a specific activity we did to support SAPIENT, which is a UK. It's a standard that our UK customers use. So it's a C2, basically a C2 interface. So we added that capability as part of our reporting and analysis feature to feed that C2 capability and be more interoperable. So a broad set of updates, better drone or more drones, improved remote ID functionality to stay compliant, and then a few cats and dogs there to make sure our API is continue to be robust and feeds the type of systems that our customers want to use.
It's almost dizzying how much you have to stay on top of this, whether on the regulatory side or the technology side, just to try to stay one step ahead of the threat. So, good on you guys for doing that. We're getting close to the end here, and I want to circle back kind of, to almost where we were in the beginning. Here you are in the US, and D-Fend is expanding its US presence. So what is D-Fend's position and presence in the US today?
Sure. Let me start. Our presence starts with our customers. Our core customers are in the DoD, DHS, and DOJ. They have a large number of systems. They've had them for several years. They continue to, they're purchasing more systems, and they use. Our systems get used consistently, day, night, in certain environments. What's awesome is that they provide us a great amount of feedback. They give us feedback when systems work. Sometimes when there's issues where we've missed a drone or something happened, they give us that feedback. So for us, it's really important because we're able to improve our product. We're able to improve our service to them, and obviously, provide them something that's more relevant as they give us that feedback. So that relationship with these organizations are great. But our focus has really been recently on state and local law enforcement, airports, all those verticals that we just recently talked about, ports, and then critical infrastructure. We're getting a lot of interest and pull about how can I use a detection and mitigation system even though they're not all authorized. So we're doing a lot of education. So to do that, we've had to add staff. We've added quite a number of new roles to do functionally a number of different things. One is focus on demonstrations and evaluations and all these things that are either formal or informal. So we've added some pre-sales engineering staff to our team. We know that we've got to be fully aware of where legislation is going, and we've got to be able to contribute to these policies. So we just brought on board Brett Feddersen, who's going to help us quite a bit with working with Congress and working that policy side, whether it's FAA or on the congressional side. And we're absolutely firming up our support from a training perspective or just that post-sales activity, make sure our customers are able not just to use our product, but as we get updates, we're able to support them. And when they deploy, they have everything they need. So we're rounding out this team. We're still going to be hiring. Our office is based in McLean, so we just added a few more offices to our space. I'm hoping that we're going to be adding more by end of year. And in the end, we feel really good. We feel good about what we've got deployed. We feel good about where, in general, the drone market is going. One thing I didn't touch on earlier is, there's going to be a drone economy. There's going to be a drone-based economy. It's going to be really big. And you mentioned the deliveries, whether it's pizza or Amazon shipments. This economy is not going to be small. And just like we talked about commercial space, there's going to be something big here. And it's not just counter drone about threats. I think we've also got to look at how do we become part of that safety layer to make sure drone commerce can exist without these impacts. And we think we can be part of that solution. We can also help in that regulation. So we feel really good about where we are. We like things to move faster. So maybe we can help with that. But in the end, we think we're positioned really well. We've got a great product. I think we got really solid core anchor customers, and we've got a whole an adjustable set of customers that are really looking for capability and really hungry to have this type of solution in their hands. So feel good about this, and the team, like I said, is a great team. They're out there, and if you ever need a demo, you ever want to see how this thing works, happy to show it. That's how I love to be out there and show the product wherever we need to be.
I'm sure that's one of your main approaches to these folks that don't currently have the authorities, right, under U.S. law to employ counter drone technologies. And along those lines, you've mentioned this before. You've been very active with different partnerships and alliances. Tell us a little bit about that in the couple minutes we have left, and then I really want to talk about what is next. We talked about what has already happened, all these updates, these demos you've done, the maritime case. So first, tell us a little bit about some of the partners. You mentioned SAIC, LightEye, and then, kind of what's next on the horizon.
Yeah, so partners, that's really critical for us. We, as a small company, we just don't have the staff to be everywhere. So partners are important because they allow us to get into customers that either we can't get into or else we just don't have the bandwidth. So you mentioned SAIC. We're identifying and working with a number of different system integrators who are all looking at layered solutions, whether they are systems that have kinetic solutions and they need a non-kinetic piece. We're also working with a lot of these partners to go after RFPs that have been issued for DoD and DHS. So that's a fundamental part of it. We bring up SAIC a lot because we've done a lot with them, and obviously we've done the JCO and activity, and we expect to do a lot more with them. We mentioned LightEye, Black Sage. These are companies that we're working with that are they're smaller, but absolutely bringing together really unique technologies and having us a part of it. I think companies like this recognize the importance of having a counter drone system that does cyber, and so that's been great. But the one area partnerships that we're really leveraging now are these smaller entities. As I mentioned, All Secure Group, that's helping us in a number of states. Indiana, they're based in Ohio. Papa Romeo Boats, who we did this maritime effort with. We're actually going down to New Orleans this week to go meet with them to talk about some additional activity we could do. There are a lot of small companies that are involved deeply in state and local levels. And law enforcement can't directly do everything they want to do right now, as we talked about, but there are partners that understand how we can still help them. So even if I can get them a 50% solution, it's better than nothing. And so a lot of these smaller partners that are really well positioned at state and local levels are really important to us, because that we've got to be part of the bottom up demand for systems and solutions that can help influence regulation at state levels and obviously hopefully at the federal level. But our growth will be because of great companies that we're going to be partnering with and deploying with.
All right, well, very good. I'm going to jump the gun and say, because we are actually at time here, but I'm going to squeeze this in. I believe we have a little slide to show. One thing that's up next is actually next Tuesday. I'll be talking with D-Fend Solutions in a specific webinar that they're hosting, fighting the domestic drone danger incidents, legislation, technology, and tools. So we're going to get a lot deeper into the legislative aspect of this. So I'm really excited about that. There's the registration link. If you haven't registered for it, check it out. Other fun fact coming up next month, I'm going to feature a Law Tech Connect Counter UAS panel from our AUVSI Exponential. So stay tuned for that on my channels as well. And you know, it's Innovation Month next month. So much counter drone stuff happening. It's innovative. You guys are a part of that. So part 3 of D-Fend's 4-part series this year across every quarter will be in July. So just stay tuned for that. But Danny, before we sign off, any final words?
No, just thank you for the opportunity, and we are really looking forward to what the future is going to bring. And you know, you're a key part of it because you're educating and you're connecting a lot of dots. So we want to be part of this future market space that's going to be about drones and everything around drones.
Well, very good. Well, thank you so much. This was a great episode, everybody. Thank you, everybody out there. We are out here.